ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the best sports show in Kansas City. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW Radio, where sports come alive. Join your hosts, the awesome voice, and Coach 24 as they dive into the latest sports news, analysis, and excitement. From the biggest games to the most thrilling moments, they've got it all covered. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an hour of unbeatable sports action. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW Radio.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. We are set.
Hello, Mother Chris.
Are we ready? Oh, oh my goodness. Oh, my bad. Hey, welcome to the weekend eve. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW. And for the first time in, I got to say, about 2 months, that we, all three of us, are here together, kicking back and totally getting ready to do some sports. Next to me, my brother with another mother, Coach 24, Darwin Penny. How are you doing this evening, sir?
We're doing great. Glad to be here and looking forward to another great show.
Absolutely. And running the show behind the scenes, Mr. DJ Scatter, George Walker. Mr. Walker, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm doing fine as long as we can get these buttons going right out here. And Merry Christmas.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm Brian Kress, the awesome voice. So the last time we talked, the Chiefs were undefeated. Obviously, they're not undefeated, but they are still the only team that has one loss. Saying that, they are also the most microscopic team because every little thing they do wrong, it gets magnified. You know, they can't score enough points. They don't give up points because we're still, they're still 13-1 and everything. So, and now you've got Patrick Mahomes' ankle again is the number one news in the world of the NFL. So, but he is going to play this weekend.
I wouldn't expect anything less. He has a high tolerance not only of pain, but somehow he manages to block out that ankle injury, and because it's not a new injury. Whenever he's had an injury, it's pretty much been that ankle that gets rolled up in a collision or whatever. But just as long as he feels like he can go out there and be safe and play, because they've all are just maybe about one win away from locking up home field advantage throughout. And so I think it's you do have to, I think, play on the side of caution, because that's the one guy that they could ill afford to have go down and not be available for any type of playoff game. So, but he knows his body. He knows how to get out of harm's way. He obviously can get rid of the ball quick, and I think at this point they're about ready to get back on to leaning on the running game a little more.
Absolutely. So the other thing is that people are complaining that they're not scoring enough points. There's 5 teams in the NFL that has not scored 30 points or more this year. The Chiefs are one of them. The other 4 are roughly the 4 worst teams in the NFL, which a combined record of 11-45. But saying that, I think Andy Reid knows exactly what he's doing, and indirectly, he is teasing with everybody because everybody's going, oh my gosh, everybody's freaking out. We watch these football games. look, I have gotten to the point. I just sat and watched. I remember when they were getting ready to kick the field goal against Denver, and I just sat there. And then when they blocked it, I was like, "Oh, okay, wow." I mean, anything they do does not surprise me.
So the Chiefs are a product of their own doing, right? 5 years ago, we saw a team that could score as many points, how many ever points you needed them to score, they could score, and they weren't very good on defense. And so, we saw them lose an AFC championship game, and then we saw them win an AFC championship game, win a Super Bowl, all these things. And so they've created this, and it's hard for people to imagine even from a philosophical standpoint that an Andy Reid coach team, offense led by Patrick Mahomes, could go 14 weeks without scoring 30 points. That's just hard for people to believe. Good teams find ways to win games. And the Chiefs have found every way to win a game.
Absolutely.
Whether it's been a last minute drive, whether it's been a defensive stand, a blocked field goal, a special teams field goal that bounces and goes through the uprights, you name it, they've done it. The challenge for most people is because people have become spoiled. They've become used to an electric offense, and then last year we saw a stingy defense show up. We still got the stingy defense because it's a little bit more bend but don't break, and they've managed to control the clock and find a way to win all these one-score games. I think they've won now like 15 or 16 one-score games in a row. That's incredible.
Up until last weekend.
Yeah.
So
it's a pretty amazing feat in itself, but like I said, they are a product of what they created with a fast-paced, high-scoring offense that when you have the best quarterback in the league that people come to accept, it's an offensive league. It's wide open. Receivers can run across the middle without any fear of being jacked. If they do get jacked, then the guy gets thrown out of the game or fined. Right. And so it's a wide open game. And so it's not the team that we expected not to have a 30-point game. That's just the way it is. But Chiefs fans have turned into Al Davis, just win, baby.
Yep, absolutely. and they do. So, I mean, like the game with the Chargers, they had to run the clock out, and they did. They ran it down almost to perfection, and then the guy kicked the field goal. I mean, look at Travis Kelce. When he caught the ball, he wasn't trying to run or try to juke somebody and try to get into the end zone. He knew exactly what he had to do. But that is what they practiced all through training camp. A lot of people say that Andy Reid's training camps are probably the worst in the NFL based on how hard and how difficult they do it and how much they put into it. You could almost say to a point outside of the hitting, it's like in the 90s, you can almost compare it to like Marty Schottenheimer's, and how he ran it. But they prepare for every scenario. So when they blocked that field goal, they knew what was going to happen. So they prepared, they lined up the way they did, and they blocked it, and people are like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, not to them, because they had prepared. And that's what happens when you prepare. So like when you scout somebody, you have paperwork, you have your notes, and you prepare how you're going to watch this guy and how he performs. If you just walk right in and just take a look at him, you probably wouldn't know as much about him as you would if you weren't prepared.
Yeah, everybody does do what they can to prepare, and maybe we never did hear all that went into that particular block. I think the challenging part was that the guy that they went over didn't put up much of a fight. And I think that was the thing. Is like, okay, we know this guy is the weakest link on the line, and so we're going to get over and try to make that. I think the only one to me that was kind of weird was the Raider game, but even at that, the Chiefs were ahead, and the Raiders didn't expect the center to snap the ball, and nobody else was moving. The center was moving on his own time, and quarterback still barking out. And so, and then to have a ball that you say, okay, if you hit the uprights, is it going to go through or is it going to go bounce back right? I think those probably are the only games to me that you say, wow, the ball's bouncing. But that's what happens to good teams. Good teams get good breaks. Bad teams get poor breaks, right? I'll say this, the game a couple of weeks ago, the Dallas and Cincinnati game, right? It was like, just get out of the way and you kick a field goal and you win the game, and what slim playoff hopes you have are still alive. But you have a guy that decides, oh, no, I'm going to catch this ball and I'm going to run it back, like what happened on Thanksgiving,
right?
And fumbles the ball and basically gives the Bengals, a victory. And so that's what happens to a bad team or a poor team, poorly prepared, poorly coached, because that is a fundamental thing that you say in even in junior high. If you block the kick, get away, Peter, get away. If the guy that's going to return is going to fair catch the ball and he can't get there, he's hollering, Peter, get away, get away, get away. And so, but one guy who doesn't follow instructions, well, those guys don't last on a well-coached team. Right? That guy in the Jimmy Johnson day would have been packed up.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
The only guy that Jimmy let get away with that was Leon.
No, you're right. That was because he was a great defensive tackle.
Absolutely. And Jimmy came out and said, as long as I'm coaching this team, Leon's got a place. Right?
Right.
We'll tell him next time, Leon, don't touch the ball.
Absolutely. So saying this, do players have like an ego? Because like when McKinnon, remember when he could have scored the touchdown and he stopped because he was team oriented? Is there a lot of players when they're not well coached are more thinking about themselves?
Depends on, I'll say it like this, depends on what your contract says, right? Your contract says I got 3 more years, then or you're a guy that's on the back end of your career, and man, this Super Bowl is what I need to go off in the sunset like a McKinnon. It ain't about me at this point. A young guy who's a first or second year guy who's trying to make a name for himself, trying to get a big contract, he tries to make that play and do something different, right? I think that's it. All players have some level of ego. They wouldn't be where they are if they didn't. But is your ego going to override the overall direction and goal of the team?
Well, and I know that Andy Reid makes sure that doesn't happen.
Well, I'll say it this way. They're going to have more of a challenge as in the future years, especially with once they get this first group of players coming into the league that have spent their entire college career dealing with NIL.
Oh,
it's going to be a different type of player that comes into the NFL.
Oh my gosh, and that's another subject that we'll definitely have to discuss and talk about it sometime. So right now the Chiefs are the number 1 seed, and unlike the NFC, they have a 2-game lead on the Buffalo Bills, though the lead is actually 1. Because if they do lose 2 games, then Buffalo takes the tiebreaker. They need, as of right now, unless Buffalo loses, which I can't see how they would lose because they're playing teams that they should win. They are favored to win. Unlike the Chiefs, where they have 3 games against teams that are 67% winning percentage, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is the strongest schedule of the any of the teams. So they need to win 2 of these games. And if they can win at least 2 games, win against Houston and then against Pittsburgh, then they can rest up against Denver. And I think that they would definitely need to do that. Now, saying that is totally different matter, but still, they have 2 more wins that they've got to get, and then they get the number 1 seed. How important is the Chiefs? Unlike last year when it didn't matter because they had played poor enough to just make the playoffs and not play for the number 1 seed. How important is it for them this year to get the number 1 seed?
I don't think there's any more pressure on them this year than there has been any other year. Arrowhead is a great place to play. The home field advantage there is real. I think that, the amount of playoff experience that they have, and then having last year proven that they can go on the road and win a division game and win an AFC championship game on the road gives them a lot of confidence knowing that we can do that, especially as long as 15 is upright and healthy. And so I don't think it is magnitude. None of the teams that they would have to travel to if they were ever in a situation to travel is an adverse environment unlike what they're used to, right? The Chiefs are used to cold weather, so it's not a big deal if you have to go to Buffalo to play or you have to go to Pittsburgh and play. That's not a big deal, right? There's not, of the teams that could possibly get the home field advantage, there's not a team that plays in a dome indoor where you could say noise could possibly be an issue. You're not going to somewhere in the South where it could be unseasonably warm and you could say, well, it's hot and the players could become fatigued. There's nobody there. So it's either going to be in Kansas City, it's going to be in Buffalo, or it's going to be in Pittsburgh. And so those are all very comparable. The only thing that's a little bit different is that Buffalo doesn't have natural grass.
Right. Now, they have the athletic turf, but when they do get the new stadium, are they going to still keep it that way, or are they going to put natural turf in?
My guess is that based on Buffalo and how it is, I think they'll probably keep it turf. Buffalo has been turf since the 80s,
right.
Since the post OJ days. Once they moved, out of, playing in old, I can't remember the name of that stadium.
Orchard?
No, before they were in Orchard Park.
Okay.
In the old stadium that they were down. I mean, it was, I almost said it, but anyway, it was downtown Buffalo. So they haven't had natural grass since then.
Right.
Right. So I would be surprised if they go to a natural grass in this next stadium. So to me, there's nothing out of the ordinary for the Chiefs to have to deal with it. The only time that it would be different would be in the Super Bowl, which would be indoors.
Right.
So which that would be, correct me if I'm wrong, the first time the Chiefs would play a Super Bowl indoors.
That is, because they played in Tampa. They played in
California.
It wasn't San Francisco. It was, and they didn't play in L.A. because the fact that it was Cincinnati. I'm trying to think. I'm almost positive it was not San Francisco, but it was in the San Francisco area. Because it was almost kind of a home game for the 49ers.
Yeah.
And then the first one, Vegas. Vegas is indoors.
Vegas is indoors. That's right.
So that was last year. And then they played this year in New Orleans, which is the Superdome. Well, what is called the Superdome. The new kids don't know what Superdome is.
Right.
So, but maybe it was Miami. Did they play?
They did play one in Miami.
Right. That was when they beat San Francisco, and then they played the next year in Tampa. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, but they can play in any, because Andy Reid is such a great coach that he trains the players, like I said, every situation, whatever, if it's cold, if it's warm, if somebody gets out, because they've done practices where, like, they said Patrick got hurt, so they throw in Carson Wentz. If Travis Kelce is out, they bring in somebody else. So they keep doing that, which is part of the reason why losing all these players, they never missed a step.
Right. I think that's important to the continuity of the team is, that they've been able to plug the right pieces in, and then gotten better defensively where they may have taken a step back offensively, but at the end of the day, you're still dealing with 15 back there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and everybody's talking about, well, he doesn't have all these stats that he did in the first couple of years. But the thing of it, and I will say that last week was probably one of his 5 worst games that he's ever played. Mm-hmm. But again, we're back to the Chiefs fans are so spoiled. We've been so used to the winning, kind of like the Patriots for the last 20 years, that, whenever something doesn't go completely the way you want it, it's like, oh my gosh, we're freaking out. and it's not a big deal. But I guess we also worry about, because when we do win a championship, AKA like the Royals, mm-hmm. then all of a sudden they just fall apart, or they fall back into notoriety, mm-hmm. and you wonder when they're going to get that championship game again. So, but the Chiefs right now are just totally just on cruise control.
Right. So Arizona was where they beat the Eagles.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It was Arizona. So but last year was indoors because it was
Vegas.
In Vegas, but it was Arizona. The game in Tampa that they lost to the Bucs, that was a home game for the Bucs. And then they played at Miami versus the 49ers, that first Super Bowl in 2019. So Hard Rock, Raymond James, State Farm Stadium in Glendale, and then last year at Allegiant Stadium in Nevada. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
So they did get indoors once. And so to me, that would be the only thing that would be somewhat different than any of these other stadiums that they're going to play at in the playoffs. So,
right. So let's do this. So right now the Chiefs are the number 1 seed. Who, outside of Kansas City, if you had to pick somebody else, who do you think would go to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl?
I would say Buffalo, just because they've played really well down the stretch. Josh Allen has played really well. They've found a running game besides Josh Allen, and they have managed to not miss Stephon Diggs. And so I think they've done a good job of piecing it all together, and he's playing at a high level. I still don't really trust the Steelers. I'm not convinced that Russell Wilson is where he was some years ago. Me personally, I don't know that I would have put him back as a starter, but I'm not Mike Tomlin. But they're really good defensively, and they can rush the passer, and they can create a running game. I still believe in the Ravens. They've got some bad losses, but they've also got some really good wins, and I think pretty much that's where it stops, is amongst those 4 teams as far as the AFC is concerned.
Right, and Josh, is just like Lamar. They have stellar regular season performances. They get MVPs, blah blah blah, but yet when it comes to the playoffs, they always seem to stub their toe.
Well, Josh played really well in the game against Kansas City. Mahomes just played better.
Right.
In that epic game. He did everything that he needed to do in a game and leaves his defense 20 seconds and they can't do the job. So he did play well in that game. He hadn't won the big game. He still doesn't have an MVP to his name. Lamar
You're right.
has two,
Right.
and did not play well in the AFC Championship game last year, and then for whatever reason, the Steelers have had his number.
Right.
In the big games, and so, but all quarterbacks are measured by what they do in the postseason, and being good enough is not enough. You have to get that mark. You can be bad in the regular season, fluko, and go on a 6-game run and wind up with a Super Bowl ring in your pocket, right? So that's going to be the change. And that right now still has been the difference over the last few years in these close games of playoff and Super Bowl magnitude. Patrick Mahomes has just been better than those other guys, even if it was just by a little bit.
Right. Now, as a professional athlete, and you did when you played professional baseball, how much does it have an effect mentally on like Allen and Jackson?
They can say all they want that it doesn't matter, but it does. They want to be remembered. Every athlete wants to have his name etched so that when I'm done playing, they're still talking about me. And they know that's how they're going to be ultimately measured. They're coming up in the Mahomes era. It was like Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning had the MVPs. He had all that, but Brady had all the hardware, until he finally broke through and was able to get that. And so all of that does matter to those guys, because it is now not about ability. It is now not about money. All these guys have been handsomely paid. It's now about legacy. And my legacy is cemented by the championships that I win.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and they're playing in the same time as Patrick Mahomes. So, so like Manning and Roethlisberger, they had to deal with Brady, which now Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. So I mean, it's almost like deja vu. So, saying this, what do you think with Mahomes is one of his weaknesses? And I'm not worried about if he throws for 50% or has an off game. But just in general, what is one of the attributes that he needs to improve on?
Mahomes' strength, for me, is his weakness, and that is his improvisation, right? His ability to go off script. I'm always worried, is he going to go off script one time too many? Is he going to throw that no-look pass? He's going to do that one thing one time too many? Is he going to force a pass because he's got such great arm talent that he's going to do it? For me, since year one, that has always been my concern. Is he going to be Brett Favre, where he's reckless at the wrong time, but it's what makes him great, that gunslinger mentality that he has? But he's gotten so much better, and then he is such a great leader. That's what has allowed him to be that gunslinger. And if he does make a mistake, the guys don't worry about it because they know how good he's going to be when he needs to be. He doesn't have to be great all the time anymore. He's just great when he needs to be great. And maybe that's for one drive, maybe that's for 2 minutes, maybe that's for one quarter. He can just elevate his game and everybody else around him. But if there was one thing that I would nitpick on, and that is just that gunslinger mentality, man, of I can make that throw. I can make that throw.
Right.
Don't nobody have to be looking.
Right. Now, so like last week, he threw several long passes, but they weren't even close. I mean, it wasn't even like the receiver could reach out and barely touch it. It wasn't. They were like virtually 5 yards too long.
He's throwing early because he's tired of getting hit.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
These two tackles have not done a job of protecting him. And at some point in time, you've got to say, I got to stop taking hits because I need my best ability is availability, and I need to be there for my time. And so the timing's off a little bit, and so he missed on some of those throws because he's like, I got to get rid of this ball, so I'm not continuing to take hits at some point, right? At some point in time, the coach comes to you and say, get the ball out of your hand, right? We know this guy's right now is killing our tackles, and they can't keep him off of you.
Right.
Get rid of the ball. Can you put enough air under it to let the receiver run under it?
Right.
And if the receiver gets jammed up at the line just a little bit to throw the timing off, and then he's got no chance of getting to the ball.
Right. And with that, I mean, Joe Tooney is going to have to stay at left tackle. You can't put Morris back there. Maybe you could put him in a guard or relieve him or whatever. But I definitely know that. And right now we're talking about this season and Super Bowl 59. But starting next season, we need to start drafting some offensive line.
Yeah, you're either going to have to draft somebody, or you have to, these guys going to have to take a big leap, and you're going to have to coach these guys up. But it's the same thing that we were talking about in the Super Bowl, that they were defeated by the Buccaneers, is because they were banged up line going into that Super Bowl. And then the question was, do you bring in somebody new, or do you have two guys out of position? You take this guy and move him outside and then bring in somebody inside. And my philosophy has always been, if you're going to have somebody out, just only have one guy out of position. Don't have two guys out of position, even though this guy's an all-pro at guard, but you're putting him at tackle, which is not what he's used to.
Right.
So I'd rather stay strong at guard, and maybe I've got a rotation or something at that tackle spot, but I'm not going to put two guys out of position.
Gotcha. And we are at halftime on Any Given Sunday on KUAW. Coach 24, Darwin Penny, DJ Scatter, George Walker behind the scenes, and I am Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we will talk a little more NFL, and then we're going to talk some Major League Baseball and college football. So we're going to go take a break, and we will be right back. All right, we're back for the second half of Any Given Sunday on KUAW, Coach 24, DJ Scatter, and I'm the awesome voice. So, a little bit about the NFL. So, we were talking about the Chiefs. We think that they're going to go to the Super Bowl. So, now you've got the NFC. Detroit last week lost to Buffalo. And so, there is actually a three-way tie for the best record in the NFC. Do you think that Detroit will still have enough firepower on their defense to be able to push forward and get their first Super Bowl?
I think Detroit's biggest issue right now is the loss of Montgomery in the running game, because when Jared Goff has a running game, he's a totally different player. We saw him last week. He's having statistically his best season because of the two-headed monster that they have at running back. And when you can have a power running game, it keeps your defense off the field. Losing a Hutchinson is a huge loss, can't be replaced. And, they've got some other guys banged up defensively, and certainly they've given up more points than they have. The only thing that scares me really about Detroit is their coach and his emotions. And when to go for an onside kick, and his bravado of always wanting to go for it on fourth down, and just don't put your team in that type of situation. Play the game head up and take your emotions out of it. And so he, to me, is the wild card. They've got enough talent. They've got arguably the best line in football. And so I think that Detroit, if their coach doesn't get in his own way, I still think that they could be the team to beat, even though the Eagles have really, really played well for the last 2 months. They're good offensively and defensively. They still can be had on the back end in the secondary. And then when their two best receivers are healthy, and the addition of Saquon Barkley just makes Philadelphia really, really tough to beat. And so if that game, whoever gets the home field in that game is who's going to win it. If it's in Philly, I feel like they'll win it. If it's in Detroit, I think the Lions would win that game.
So how much of a chance does Minnesota have to get the top seed? I know they're tied with the Eagles and the Lions, and they can control their own destiny against the Detroit Lions in Week 18 because they play each other.
Absolutely. I'm not convinced that Minnesota is in the same category as the other two teams. I think they're just a notch below. I'm still not convinced that Minnesota is better than Green Bay. So I think that could be a factor. Now, that saying, Sam Darnold is playing unlike we've ever seen him, right?
Well, he's not playing like Sam Darnold.
Right. And so Justin Jefferson's unbelievable. They have really come together defensively to give themselves a formidable shot, and then a running game that has been revitalized. And so but I just think they are just a half step behind the other two guys leading there, and I'm still not, as I said, not convinced that they're that much better than the Packers. I think the Packers are gaining momentum. I think every week that Jordan Love continues to play and to progress as a young quarterback, I think only enhances, and they've got some no-name people there that are flying under the radar, and Josh Jacobs now has found his stride as the running back there in Green Bay.
Right.
And so I wouldn't count them out. I could see them beating any of those other teams, right? But right now I would have a slight edge to Philly, with Detroit being second. For me, Green Bay third, and then the Vikings fourth, or you can call them 3 A and B.
Right. So like, unlike the AFC, when it's literally virtually Kansas City or Buffalo, and you've got the NFC where you have the three-headed monsters up on top. you got Green Bay also. Is there anybody else in the NFC do you think could advance? Could Shaker Baker?
Shaker Baker, my man, Shaker Baker. You know what? They could do some damage because they're playing with house money, right? They've got a really good run-stopping defense. And they're just good enough on the back end. And Shaker Baker is playing out of his mind right now. And Mike Evans, when healthy, is still one of the best receivers in the game. But you just never know when that hamstring of his is going to decide that it doesn't want to play this week and everything like that. That said, I don't think they have enough explosive weapons, but they could be the team that just messes it up for everybody, right? I wouldn't want to play them. Right? They're that team lurking on the outside. You're like, The other team that I think is making its move and making its push is the Rams. The Rams are getting healthy. Stafford has weapons.
Oh, yeah.
With a Puka Nakua, okay? And they've now found them a running back in Kyron Williams. All of a sudden, the Rams are starting to kind of find them. We know McVay is a good coach, right?
Right.
They could be a problem too, right? Because I think they're going to wind up winning the West.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
San Francisco's done.
So you think they will overtake Seattle?
Yes. Right now, they are by virtue of tiebreaker. They are first place.
They are leading. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
they're leading the West.
Yeah, I forgot.
So, and I don't see them giving it up. Right. And so they're right now. If playoffs started today, they're the 4th seed.
Right.
So Tampa would be the 3 seed, and then
because what would it would be? The Rams would play host to the Vikings.
Yes.
So
and that's the weird part of all of this, right? Is that the Vikings, because of the Lions' record, wind up being on the road as a really good 5 seed. But we've seen those 5 seeds like that get handled, right? We saw it last year in Dallas with Green Bay going in there and dismantling the Cowboys. Right? So we've seen that happen before. So it wouldn't surprise me, but the Buccaneers are interesting, right? Somebody has to win the NFC South. I don't know. You remember they used to call the NFC East the NFC Least? I don't know what we can call the South.
See, yeah, that is my famous word. Yeah,
right. So I don't know what we call it South, but somebody has to win it, right?
The NFC mouth.
The NFC mouth, whatever.
Yeah, because they talk a lot of stuff, but they can't back it up.
Right.
So speaking of the South, you've got Penix this week playing, and they benched Kirk Cousins. Yeah. Now, saying this, I feel that they only did that because they're playing the Giants, which is arguably the worst team in the NFL. You know, Vegas kind of, they switch back and forth, you know, of who's the worst one. But saying this, if they were playing anybody else, would they have made that change?
I think they had to make the change to try to salvage the locker room. Kurt's thrown 1 touchdown and like 10 picks in the last month, right? And it's you got to do something.
Right.
Most people have wanted them to go to Penix long before this, and they haven't. They're still in the playoff hunt, and so you've got to do something to try to light a fire in your team to try to salvage making the playoffs.
Yeah.
I do think playing the Giants helps that young man get his confidence going versus them playing the Vikings last week. I believe that's who they played last week.
So are they going to keep him the rest of the season?
You got to.
Outside of injury.
You got to.
So
you can't make this change right now
Okay.
and then go back.
Okay, so let's just say he throws a dud against the Giants, and somehow the Giants win. And I can't remember offhand if they're playing in New York. It is
No, the game's in Atlanta.
okay. It's in Atlanta. So
Best situation for him,
okay,
playing the Giants at home.
right. So let's just say he plays horrible. Still keep him.
To me, if you're not going to let him quarterback the rest of the season, then don't put him in there.
Then you're almost saying that you've kind of given up on the playoffs.
If you lose, you're pretty much done.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
you'd be at least you potentially could wind up being two games behind the Bucks, with the Bucks having already beat you.
Right. No. Atlanta beat the Bucks. Atlanta has the tiebreaker, so they're virtually, if they were tied, Tampa Bay and Atlanta, they would tie. Then Atlanta would get the go because of the 2 wins. So saying that, right? If they lose, then it's kind of like Kansas City and Buffalo. They're 2 games ahead of Buffalo, but technically they are 1, because if they're tied, then Buffalo gets the tiebreaker. So yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see with Penix, so how that's going to go.
Yeah, I think that you've got to do that. So, yeah, Tampa beat them twice.
No, Atlanta beat them twice.
Yeah, they beat Tampa twice.
Right.
31-26 and 36-30.
Right.
So,
Right.
but I just, for me, if you're not going to play this guy the rest of the season, because he's your quarterback of the future, they're trying to figure out how they're going to get out from under all this money with Kirk Cousins.
Well, yeah. What was it? 4-year deal?
It's $100 million. However you want to look at it, it was $100 million guaranteed.
Right. Exactly. And I can't get how they give him the guaranteed money, because they did that in Minnesota. They did that in Washington. I don't know how he keeps getting these guaranteed contracts. So
Is he has always managed to become a free agent at the right time. Now, he got his money guaranteed in Minnesota, but you got to also remember he played on franchise tag twice.
with Washington.
Yes.
Yeah.
They franchise tagged him twice.
Yeah.
So he, and he made his money.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't think he would get that much guaranteed from Atlanta coming off an Achilles injury. That was, to me, the biggest surprise, is him getting the money that he got coming off of an Achilles. Not because of his ability, but simply you don't know how it's going to affect him,
Right.
off an Achilles. But as a guy who didn't rely on a whole lot of athleticism, I guess they said, as long as his arm's good, we could do that. So,
Right. Well, and speaking of this, so tonight's game, you've got the Broncos and the Chargers, this is the first game, Thursday night game, that got flexed. So, and I'm glad, because I think it was Cleveland and Cincinnati, so much better. So saying this, Denver has the 1-game lead over the Chargers. The Chargers just gave up 43 points to Tampa Bay. Do you think the Chargers come back and get back to what they were, what's got them there? Good defense, Herbert, and everything else, or does Denver take advantage and ends up beating them? Because if they do, this will knock the Chargers virtually on the 7th, and allowing other teams to come back in.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the Chargers at home, and that they'll bounce back and do a good job defensively, and maybe rattle Bo Nix a little bit, and hopefully Herbert can find some solace in what has been his least productive year and then try to get something going. I know he's adjusting to Jim Harbaugh and what Harbaugh brings, and trying to tell him you don't have to do it all by yourself.
Right.
Just to go out there and play good, solid football. And so I think that they are a better team than Denver overall, but tonight will be the deciding factor.
Yep. Well, I know that, let's put it like this. I think if the Chargers win tonight, it pretty much seals the top 7.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody else will come out. I don't think Miami will. I mean,
they're done.
McDonald is 3-15 against teams over 500. If they're playing anybody over 500, it ain't happening. And Indianapolis they don't win the division because Houston's already clinched it. I don't think that is. So
that's the worst division in football.
yeah, it is. So
the South in both.
Absolutely. So. So we've got Chargers tonight, both of us. I think Chargers gave up 43 points last week. I think there won't be even 43 points in this game tonight. I think the Chargers will win 21-17.
Yeah.
So now let's drop NFL. Let's talk a little baseball. So the Royals, obviously they haven't done a lot. They did sign a couple of their players, to contracts, big contracts and stuff. Do you know of possible players that they are looking at or interested in bringing them to the team?
I won't name specific names,
Right.
things like that, but I will talk about what we are looking for. We are looking for an opportunity to get some more help from a left-handed bat, somebody who could have some versatility, could move around the infield, third, second, maybe even in the outfield. The trade to Cincinnati was huge in bringing Jonathan India here for Brady Singer. The hard part was that we gave up a number 4 starter that gave us 180 innings, and so somehow we've got to try to replace those 180 innings that we got from Brady Singer. But we were in a desperate need to have somebody who could fill the leadoff spot, and India is the guy that could do that. The question is he going to play second, his natural position? Is he going to play in outfield, or maybe even potentially play third base? In trying to figure out what's best, but we've got to have somebody in front of Bobby. Bobby had over 400 at-bats last year with nobody on, and so to think that he still drove in over 100 RBIs shows you how clutch that he was when he did get opportunity with runners in scoring position, which he was one of the best in the league last year at driving in runners in scoring position. And so it's hard. We bought ourselves some time, whereas Brady was going to be coming into free agency in after next year, and so India still has basically the same amount of time before he can become a free agent. And just trying to get a little bit more offense, where we do have some depth, and trying to bolster our bullpen. We're still looking for another arm. It'd be nice to have that guy that is that for sure stopper. Urseg did a good job coming down the stretch for us last year. Hunter Harvey, hopefully he'll be back healthy again, and he can do a good job. And so we pretty much closed by committee last year, and I think we're still looking for another guy who could possibly be a dominant arm in the back end of the pen, because we may take a step back in the rotation. You got to look, last year a lot of our rotation guys had career years. It was Cole Reagan's first year as a starter. He did a great job, made the all-star team last year, gave us what a true number one was. Lugo had his best year in the majors. Not only won a Gold Glove, but was an all-star. Waka had his best year. We re-signed him to a 3-year deal, and we're able to get him back in the fold. So the top 3 in the rotation is there. Who's going to be 4? Who's going to be 5? Are those things that we're trying to answer now, especially when we traded 4 away, and then we'll see what 5. There's a plethora of guys. There's even been talk about bringing Daniel Lynch, who had his best season last year as a bullpen guy, of putting him back in as a starter. And then we've got some young guys that AAA will also be battling for that fifth starter. And I think we're still in the market for a veteran who could be a fifth starter for us.
Okay, so, and I know we're not in the same realm as the Yankees and the Mets because they've been just spending money like nobody's business, and there's been a few big teams. Do those teams affect how the Royals are bringing in players? Because obviously you can't get a Soto and players like that. And I know you're not looking to find a Soto. I mean, if you could have gotten him, that would have been awesome. But I know that the Royals, their financial is not one where they're going to pay a guy $55 million a year.
Do you remember the episode of Bugs Bunny when he played all 9 positions?
Oh yeah,
That's what if we would have brought Soto here, now playing first base, Juan Soto, now playing second base, Juan Soto, now playing third base, Juan Soto. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot.
Right.
That's a lot what the Mets were willing to shell out. I thought nobody would get more money than Ohtani got last year. I thought we had hit our cap.
Right.
But they fooled me.
Yep. So in that retrospect, does it hurt the Royals when they try to get in free agents like this? Now, last year they did a great job bringing in free agents.
Yeah, but we were still team friendly. We spent some money, but it wasn't outrageous money.
Right.
Right. And so when you start talking about, $45 million, woo, it's a lot of money.
Right.
Right. That's nothing to the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cubs, and who can afford that. We can't. I think it is one of the biggest problems in all of baseball is that we don't have a salary cap, and it makes it difficult for the teams like us that are small market teams, and we've got to go out and we've got to be great in the draft. We can't just be good in the draft. We have to be great in the draft, and then we've got to be shrewd in team-friendly deals in free agency, trying to find a guy that is either trying to do a bounce back or just needs a change of scenery, which is where I spend a lot of my time in the offseason trying to identify who those type of guys are that we could bring in that we could afford. Yeah, we have ownership that is committed to spending money, but we can't be irresponsible either. Right. And go out and get a free agent that wants a 10-year deal. Right. A free agent, you want to come in and be here for $60 million or $45 million. Okay, we can talk about that. Or $30 million, we can talk about that over a couple of years where we know that's our window. Our window is going to be about 3 years. Now, we hope our window was extended last year because of the ability to get Bobby on a long-term deal, to know that we're going to have one of the best players in the league in his prime years playing right here in Kansas City. You can build around that. Right. But Salvi's on the back end of his career, and then the jury's still out on all these young guys that we got. The Pasquantinos, the Michael Masseys, the MJ Melendez, the Kyle Isbell guys. We were fortunate to have the best backup catcher in all of baseball with Freddie Fermin. I mean, here's a backup catcher who was up for a Gold Glove, right? That's pretty impressive. And so what we've got to do is we've got to figure out a way to bolster our pitching, because we don't know if our starting rotation can be as good as it was last year, right? And so we've got to give them some help by either bolstering the bullpen or being in a position to add some. We know we got to get more offense. We can't be like we were and have the pitching that we had in the playoffs and not be able to score runs to give ourselves a chance to win. We know that the Yankees are going to always have a big lineup. They just added Bellinger to their lineup, so we've got to be able to match that, not in dollars but in production.
Right, absolutely. So, but do you have, without mentioning names, do you have players that you're on the verge of bringing in, at least checking them out.
Absolutely, yeah. We're being aggressively responsible with what ownership is going to give JJ Piccolo a number and said this is how far I'm willing to go, right? And if they have that guy, what we try to do is have players also be recruiters, right? To tell them how wonderful it is to play in Kansas City and how people treat them here, and you don't have the magnitude of the media like you do in a New York. And so it's a place that you can raise your family and know that your kids are going to go to good schools and they're going to be treated just like normal people here, and that you're not just an entity. And those are the things that we have to do to sway guys to want to come here like Waka did last year. And that made a big how he was treated here in Kansas City made him want to stay when he probably could have gone out on the market and gotten a little bit more money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you, Kansas City. Be nice to these guys.
Yep, absolutely. So we are at the end of Any Given Sunday on KUAW, but we still have the best segment of the show, Penny for Your Thoughts.
Today, Penny for Your Thoughts is a very, very exciting time for me in the recent announcements of two guys that I thought should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. And so today we want to give a special shout out to the Cobra, Dave Parker. As you know, I was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, and so Dave Parker is royalty when it comes to the Pittsburgh Pirates. The late 70s, early 80s, you could argue that he was the best player in baseball, especially in particular 77, 78 when he won back-to-back he had batting titles and an MVP in there. And to think that he had gone this long without actually getting into the Hall of Fame was very, very difficult. And those who have seen Dave know that he's dealing with Parkinson's disease, and so we're just so thankful that he got to hear his name called. Second is Dick Allen. Dick Allen, long overdue. When you look at his per 162 game average, Dick Allen stacks up there with some of the best in baseball. Had won a Rookie of the Year, had won a MVP, wasn't always as beloved and looked at as the quality, feared hitter and ball player that he was because he was a bit surly at times, wasn't always the greatest media guy. And, it's sad that he didn't get to see his induction, but we're still going to celebrate those two guys. Going to Cooperstown. Also, we certainly hate that we lost Pete Rose this offseason, and that he won't get to see that day that finally when baseball will come to its senses and let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. So, Penny for Your Thoughts. Congratulations to the Cobra, and congratulations to Richie, Mr. Dick Allen.
That's awesome. Now, Mr. Walker and I want to congratulate you on getting your master's. So now we were joking if you got your doctorate yet or whatever. So we are going to call you Dr. Coach 24. But we just want to congratulate you because it takes a lot of commitment, and the fact that you were always gone every weekend to do your scouting and took time away from your beautiful wife, Maria, and everything else, and to accomplish a goal like that. We just want to congratulate you and just think that you're amazing. And so when you said that you loved Kansas City on Facebook a little bit earlier this week, I was worried that you were going to leave. And one of the best things that I've ever done was meet you. And you're my brother with another mother, and I just love you, and I enjoy the fact that we do this show together. So I just George and I wanted to thank you and congratulate you on your
big
achievements.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It is not always the easiest time in life to be going back to school, and so I am hoping to, and I'm researching now because Maria really wants me to go ahead and finish and get my doctorate. And so we're looking at some potential schools to enroll in the fall and get that going.
So
And,
he is officially Dr. Coach 24. So that's awesome. So just wanted to congratulate you
Appreciate it.
and to wish you and Mr. Walker happy holidays. So I know, this year has been trying for all of us and everything. So, but I am glad that I was able to get off in time so we can at least do this show and do the last show on the end of the year and everything. So, and saying that, I've got presents for you guys. I just haven't been able to do it because the fact that I've been so busy. So, but I just wanted to let you guys know how much I appreciate both you, Darwin, and Mr. Walker. So,
it'll be good. It'll be good in the new year.
yes, it will be great. So, with my brother with another mother, Coach 24 Darwin Penny, and DJ Scatter, Mr. George Walker, the producer, I am Brian Kress, the awesome voice. Be awesome, not angry, and you guys have yourself a happy holidays and a happy new year. We are out for the next 2 weeks, so we will see you next year.